Okay, we have with us James Rotten from the Denver Communist Party, which is, as I understand, a former ISO branch.
Yeah,
You guys evolved out of the ISO. Okay, so I wondered if you could talk a little bit about who are the Denver Communists, what you do, what you believe in, and what your relationship was to the ISO. As I understand, in I think interview, you said you were a podcast interview. You said you were somewhat different from the national ISO organization. I was in the ISO briefly about 10 years ago for a couple of
oh,
months, or about 12, and then in the Boston branch, like a long time ago.
oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, good comrades. Yeah, good comrades. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your organization.
Sure, sure. Yeah, so we we are a former branch of the ISO that has stayed together.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, what you were kind of referring to was, I guess I mentioned that we were kind of isolated from the national organization to some extent and left alone, um, as were a lot of smaller and more distant branches. I guess that was pretty typical, and uh, that came with good and bad things. Um, I, we kind of wanted more guidance and more um, uh, connection, uh, but so that was on the kind of the bad side. Like we were sort of left on our own, but we also didn't experience a lot of the uh, toxicity and kind of cultural problems that groups that were more connected to national did.
Right.
At least that's what it seems like. So,
Right. From what
but
yeah, got
so,
the mess.
oh, sorry. I was just going to say, like, when the ISO collapsed or dissolved, um, uh, about whenever that was, 10 months ago, we were kind of coming into a new. Uh, we had a lot of momentum in Denver. The Denver teachers strike had just happened, and we were as strong as we had been in terms of numbers. I think we were at 15 or something, um, uh, for a couple of years. But as is typical, perhaps in your experience as well, like we sort of accordioned out and back in and out and back in over the years, and so it's kind of unfortunate because there was a lot of excitement around the changes that were happening, um,
Right.
and I thought that the ISO had a real chance to turn a corner and really meet this moment properly, but that
Okay.
wasn't to be. So
Right. That's interesting. Right. Yeah, it's sad, but it's sad the way it played out. But so do the Denver Communists have solidarity, political solidarity with other organizations? Like as I understand, there's the Ohio Revolutionary Socialist, Illy Hemrick. Is her name? She's running for city council there, and also I know people in Socialist Resurgence, which has split from Socialist Action. That they tell me that they're sympathetic to you guys. They're like in solidarity with Denver. One of the groups they're most in solidarity with.
yeah, 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 yeah. So that's been really great. Um, the So we're part of. It's a bit nascent at this point, but we're part of a little network called the Revolutionary Socialist Network, which is one of the post ISO formations that is trying to happen, trying to
Mm.
make itself happen. And along with the Central Ohio Revolutionary Socialists, the Seattle Revolutionary Socialists, it looks like Borderlands Socialists, who are in the San Diego, Tijuana area,
Okay.
are going to be joining us soon. And we hope to have, a couple of other former ISO branches, but we want to look beyond that. And yes, Socialist Resurgence we've been talking to, and uh, and keeping an eye on. Um, Workers' Voice it is also kind of part of the RSN.
Okay.
Comrades from Workers' Voice have been on our calls and participating in that work. So that's exciting. Left Voice is another
Sure. Sure.
set of close comrades.
Sure. You had a
And
great
then,
article, by the way, in Left Voice.
oh, thank you so much. Thanks a lot. I appreciate that. And I would say Socialist Alternative in Australia has been, our comradeship with them has been really important to me during this period, because they, we hold fairly close very similar politics, and they've, I mean, I think that they're the largest IS group, International Socialist group, in the world now. So anyway.
Okay, great. Thanks. How would you see yourself politically, like Trotskyist, post-Trotskyist, Cliffite, if that's a term? Would there be a label you put on it, or don't put a label on it, or?
Yeah, all of those things.
Okay.
I don't, except for post-Trotskyist.
Okay. Yeah. I've heard that term. I don't know.
Trotskyism is not dead.
Yeah. Right. Definitely. Right.
Yeah, no, I consider myself a Trotskyist and a Cliffite. I guess I know that those are.
I don't know if that's a cool term to use. So.
Yeah, it's a little yucky, but I know Cliffite is meant to is used by Orthodox Trots to distinguish us from them,
Right.
and I don't get too carried away with that.
Sure.
I I don't consider state capitalism to be a significant principled divide. So
Yeah, especially today when we're in Cuba or Vietnam are the only deformed worker states still left, basically.
right.
This debate about China.
So
Okay,
so
cool.
you say.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, you did some really badass. You guys did some badass work protesting ICE. You had a demonstration in front of Johnny Chowat's house. He was the regional director. First, geography. You're based in Aurora, Colorado.
So we're in Denver.
Okay.
Aurora is a not to insult it, but a kind of an overgrown suburb of Denver.
Okay.
It's actually bigger than Denver, but I think both in terms of area and population. But it's right next door. It's just east of Denver, and it's probably, I would say, a more working class and has a lot of people, more greater populations that aren't white, greater Black and immigrant populations in particular. So
Okay, that's interesting. Is Boulder, Colorado, in the Denver area?
yeah. There's
I
sort of a metropolis that extends from like all along the Front Range. I mean, I think eventually it'll all be connected under communism by magnetic rail or whatever.
Right. Yeah. High-speed rails and stuff.
Going almost to Wyoming, Fort Collins, Boulder, and Denver, Aurora, Colorado Springs. Those are all sort of close enough for mutual exchange between comrades in all those areas. So
Okay, cool. I pictured Boulder, Colorado. I've never been there, but I kind of pictured it as a hippie town. Did Hunter Thompson live there or near there at one time?
I think he lived in Aspen or outside of Aspen.
Okay.
Which is a little more fitting for him. Like there's this weird kind of like frontier culture that exists in the mountains outside of Denver, or in Colorado in general. And I think I associate Hunter S. Thompson with that sort of vibe, this sort of not necessarily left libertarian type
Yeah.
type leave me alone, I want to
Right,
shoot my
right.
guns in the woods or whatever.
Right. Cool.
But Boulder is yeah, it is kind of a hippie town, but very rich hippies.
Right. Okay.
So it's like well-to-do liberalism basically.
Okay. Cool.
Is the dominant thing there.
Right. Okay. Now, you mentioned Aurora, largely minorities, people of color. What is the ethnic diversity of the Denver area? Are there many like undocumented workers there? Is it a large population, or Mexican Americans or Hispanic people? What's the ethnic mix? Or
God, I should have those stats right
oh
on
no,
my phone, but I would say it's predominantly white.
okay.
With a large Latinx population, significant, and a great history, including a great radical Chicanx history of rebellion and resistance, going back to the 60s and before that. Probably a pretty low percentage of African Americans. But good sized Vietnamese community and other people of color in the city. But yeah.
Okay, cool, interesting. Now, I'm sure you've written about this and spoken about this several times before, but I was wondering if you could take me through the big anti-ICE protest, the protest from Johnny Cho. Now, was the regional administrator of ICE.
So he's actually we wanted to go after an ICE like a what do they call him? Regional director, field office director, I guess is the ICE is the highest ICE title for a particular region. But we couldn't confirm that person's location. So we shifted targets to Johnny Choate. Johnny Choate is the warden of
Right.
a notorious concentration camp in Aurora, notorious for conditions of medical neglect. They run it's a for-profit prison operated by the Geo Group, the largest private prison company in the country, perhaps the world, I don't know. And to operate a business at a profit, you have to cut some corners. And so, undocumented immigrants are in a very vulnerable position, being demonized in our society. And so underserving them and keeping them in conditions of overpopulation, is an easy thing to do, and so that's what they've done. So there have been protests and attempts to reform this concentration camp happening for years and years, and monthly vigils, lots of activity, and so I'm not. Should I keep going about why we chose? Okay. I wasn't sure.
Sure. Fascinating.
So I had participated in a handful of demonstrations at the house of the former Denver district attorney. His name was Mitch Morrissey. He was in office for something like 15 years, never prosecuted a cop for misconduct or violence. And those were great protests. They were organized by local anarchists mostly.
Right.
And we wanted to kind of turn that style of demonstration inside out, meaning we wanted to open it up to greater participation and not organize in secret,
Right.
and not organize only among trusted comrades in whisper networks. We wanted to kind of do things more like socialists do things, and try to, rather than anarchists, and try to get mass participation, or at least the best we could based on like our reach.
Right. Right.
So I thought that this was a great opportunity. It's very controversial, which is we love.
Yeah.
The media hates it. The
Yeah.
cops hate it. Your average person on the street thinks it's, crossing a line. But, all it is breaking the social norm of leaving people alone where they live.
Yeah. Right.
We didn't break any laws, but the fact that, but it does sort of, it does break a social norm, and it does sort of raise the level of confrontation.
Right.
And so that's what was appealing about it to me.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Do we know how many people were or are at this ICE concentration camp, and how far back does it go back to the Obama administration, or do we know how far back it goes?
Oh, geez, you're asking me all the
I
tough
don't.
questions.
Sorry. Sorry.
No. I think it does. Yes, it certainly goes back to the Obama
Yeah.
administration.
Right.
I think around 1,500 captives are in that camp.
And they were brought up from the border. They were brought up to Colorado. One thing you said, many of these people.
Yeah. Something like 3/4 are asylum seekers.
Yeah.
3/4 of the I want to say population, but I feel like that normalizes it too much.
Right.
3/4 of the captives
Yeah.
are are asylum seekers who were never suspected of any crime.
Yeah. Right.
They're simply asylum seekers from the border region, mostly around in Texas. I think the El Paso border region predominantly. So yeah,
Okay.
it's bad, and it's an easy target because it's easy to make the case. We want to make those harder cases too, and obviously we say let them all in, open the borders, and let them all out of these camps. But this one is a really easy case to make because they're it's not it's very clearly and easy to document that it's not what the right wing, not that the Democrats aren't saying the same thing, but the right wing rhetoric of it's murderers and rapists and drug dealers. It's really not that. And even if it was, we're against ICE.
Yeah.
So
You're feeding the people that are criminals, but yeah, exactly. How did you? Here's the thing. How did you go about building for this action? And did you get pushback from anarchists you worked with who preferred other methods, or how did you work to get people involved in this flyering, leafleting?
Right. Well, so the Denver Communists are pretty small.
Sure.
We've been working with lots of other activist groups in the city for 8 years. But in particular, last summer, when family separations came to the national stage, the issue of family separations, and really activated the movement against ICE. That's when we drew up the plan. We drew up a plan. Oh, and also this coincided with WikiLeaks doxing ICE officials around the country. They released a bunch of information. So we got that information. We looked into some of these officials, and so we really wanted to do this last summer, like a year and a half ago. But one of the immigrant rights groups that we work with, which I'm not sure if it had officially formed yet, but the people were doing the work, was already kind of moving toward a different action, basically a block, like an encampment outside of an ICE office, or I guess it's a field office and a detention center. It's a different detention center.
Right.
Also east of Denver.
Okay.
Anyway, so they wanted to do an encampment and that culminated in a blockade, like a civil disobedience action. Like offering yourself up for arrest.
Right.
Which is what ended up happening, and we supported and participated in that action. And we sort of were waiting for the right time to do this house demo idea. And that time didn't come for like another year, because it was about like forming just finding the right allies, to finding the right partners, and Abolish ICE ended up being that partner for us. They're a good group led by an undocumented immigrant activist who is living in sanctuary in a church for the second time in her life.
Okay.
This time, God, she's been there since I think February or March.
Right.
Anyway, so yeah, we partnered with them, and how did we build for it? Well, we did the typical stuff: outreach to other activists, flyered, Facebook, and media, just reached out to media contacts, and I think one of the best little tips is to try to get anybody in the media, to do a little bit of coverage. Just hey, this group is planning this thing, and once that happens, other media can look at that, and somehow it legitimizes the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it's just like a little foothold, and so our foothold came in the independent weekly in Denver. It's called The Westward.
Okay.
And so once we got that foothold, we were able to snowball toward more attention for the action.
Right. I believe you mentioned you were on NPR, the local NPR, and you talked about it briefly. This kind of normalized it with their liberal audience.
Yeah.
On NPR? Was it a short blurb or a talk?
I spoke with them. And first of all, fuck NPR.
Yeah, I totally agree. They suck.
I know you're with me on that.
I totally agree. I fucking can't stand them. Local affiliates can be a little bit better sometimes, but not too much better.
Yeah, not in Denver at least, or in Colorado. Yeah, I don't know. They came out. They actually, I'm getting a little bit confused with Rocky Mountain PBS, because PBS also came to the action.
Okay.
And they filmed some, and then they put together a piece, an edited piece. Like, they didn't do like live coverage. They put together an edited piece that was sort of about the issues in general. And really threw us under the bus, to be honest.
They did, yeah. It's to be expected.
Yeah.
It's to be expected.
And it is. You're exactly right.
Yeah, it sucked. Yeah.
You're exactly right. Like none of the media, as far as I'm concerned, is to be trusted, or to be relied upon to do a good job of presenting our side. That's just how it's going to be forever until we leave.
They control the media. The ruling class controls the media. Like 90% of all media outlets are owned by a handful of billionaires, basically.
Right.
Yeah. So it's uphill battle.
So I still think, there's controversy. Like, a lot of activists say, well, fuck them, we shouldn't talk to them. I don't agree with that. I say fuck them, and we should talk to them.
Get the word out. Bad publicity is better than no publicity at all.
Yeah. And definitely they do the latter too. They'll get us to jump through their hoops and then not even
Yeah.
not even give us a little blip on their screen.
Right. Right.
So, but I think we have to keep trying
Yeah.
because, I mean, a little bit of publicity, even if it's negative, can go a long way too. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, were there other organizations who work with you? As you mentioned Abolish ICE. Was there an active DSA branch? And my former organization, Socialist Alternative, has or had a branch in Denver. I don't
Mhm.
know how active they are. Were they involved in this at all? Did other left groups work with you guys or?
Yeah. So let's see. Um, Abolish ICE includes DSA members. In
Okay.
fact, I would say, if the DSA or DSA members, it's kind of tricky because I don't know that, like, I wouldn't call Abolish ICE a DSA project
Okay.
or that DSA really prioritizes it, but some DSA members are in the leadership of Abolish ICE,
Sure.
and are doing that work. Um, uh, at the same time, like, it's impossible to get DSA to signal boost the work,
Yeah.
So it's a weird relationship. I don't really get it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's,
And I would say that the DSA in Denver is on the right of the organization.
mhm.
Um,
They are here as well where I live. Yeah, they are here as well.
is that true?
Yeah, I found
So
that to be true. They have talks where they have interesting debates about abstract Marxist topics, about reification of the value formula stuff. But they're all voting for Sanders. They're
right,
all signing up. Well, okay, after the meeting, they all go out canvassing for Bernie. I mean, contradiction there. A couple of people regard themselves as communists, but they're all Democrats, really. Some
yep,
kind. I've gone to a fair, and they're really nice people. I've gone to some of their public meetings and stuff, but they're like they think they're radicals and Marxists, but they're no, they're so dead in the Democratic Party. I haven't seen any way out of there, out
yep,
of it.
yeah, absolutely. The Boulder DSA, on the other hand, is much more left wing,
Yeah.
and yes, we worked with them on this action.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh,
ESA is mixed, very mixed.
yeah, it's mixed. Yeah. Uh, Socialist Alternative.
I mean,
To be
I have.
honest, I haven't seen. I know a couple of the folks that at least used to be in it, and used to work with a couple of them pretty closely. Had some issues, to be honest.
Yeah,
um,
yeah, I get that. I had some issues with the organization.
and it wasn't even organizational; it was more personal, to
Yeah.
be
Okay.
honest. But
Okay.
so I don't know. I haven't seen them around in a long time.
Okay. That's interesting.
Um, but other, like, basically everyone in the organized left in Denver came out to the protest.
Okay.
PSL, um, various anarchist collectives.
Okay.
You asked, like, if anarchists were mad or
Yeah.
whatever.
Which.
So one of my closest friends and comrades, an anarchist, was definitely um, not mad, but just concerned and critical of our decision to make things as public as we did.
Right.
And so that was a real turning point in the action, and it took some internal fighting also, like with the Denver Communists and Abolish ICE, to argue for this path of saying, hey, look, we want to announce exactly where we're going weeks in advance. We don't give a fuck if the cops are prepared. Like, what it doesn't really present a lot of negatives for us if the cops are more prepared. In fact, it could, and I think did, force them to be more restrained. Catching a suburban police force off guard with a protest, and they're not used to dealing with that kind of stuff,
Right. Especially with the media.
could have resulted in more violence than
Right.
we experience.
Mm.
Um, but the main thing was to make it public, was to give us a chance to talk about this shitbag, to get us the chance to give us the chance to put Johnny Choate on blast for weeks, and the prison, the concentration camp. So that was the real positive. So, yeah, there were anarchists that thought we were doing things wrong, and some other anarchist friends of mine said, it's been discussed, but everyone sort of agreed to not disrupt this action.
Okay. Very nice.
Which I love that
Yeah.
like, respect to my troublemaking ultra left comrades who were gonna fuck up or at least it was on the menu of like fucking up this like fairly radical action.
Yeah. So you don't have anything like the Red Guards there who trash DSA meetings or whatever?
Yeah. No, we don't. Not
Okay.
organized. There is a little. There is some attempt to bring Maoism to the city, and that particular style, that Gonzalo-ite style.
Right.
But they've never really gotten off the ground. So
Okay, that's a good thing. Now the neighborhood, Choate's neighborhood. You said there was hostility from some of the neighbors. One guy cranked a stereo, if I remember. And
yeah,
is it like an upscale, upper middle class, bourgeois type neighborhood, or no?
no, it was shockingly working class. It was
Okay.
a very working class suburban neighborhood. Modest suburban houses.
Okay.
And so, but the hostility came from two sources. One, and that was one of the drawbacks to announcing our target so far in advance,
Right.
was the
Neighbors.
cops got to the neighbors.
Mm, yeah.
The cops went to the neighborhood association and basically scaremongered about the protest.
Right.
Oh, it's Antifa. There's going to be people in masks trampling your flower beds.
Right.
And so they got to the neighbors, and it turns out apparently there's a Proud Boy, a member of the fascist group, the Proud Boys, that lives in that neighborhood.
Okay.
And that was just our bad luck.
Yeah.
Although it didn't matter.
Right.
But the Proud Boys were there, like, five of them being their nuisance self, their typical nuisance self. They worked to organize the neighbors against the protest, which, again, like, we expected hostility. Like, you mentioned, like, was it a bougie neighborhood? It definitely was not. But like the Mitch Morrissey, the when we did the house demos at the DA's house, that is a bougie neighborhood. That's in Cherry Creek, and he lives in a multi-million-dollar old mansion. And so, we've dealt with. I mean, if you've been to a protest, you've dealt with counter protesters.
Sure,
like,
sure,
if you.
sure.
It's no big deal. Like,
Right.
and it shouldn't demoralize. Like, it shouldn't demoralize us. Like, I don't know. A lot of, like, greener activists, I think, get
Yeah.
what's that?
A little newer activists are kind of weirded out by it at first, but then.
Yeah, exactly. Oh God, why are they're so hostile to us? Well, like, the ruling ideas are the ideas of the ruling class. What do you expect?
Yeah, right. Interesting. How, when you were there, how were the cops? Were they? I imagine it was a tense situation at times.
Yeah. How are the cops? Well, let's see. They wouldn't seed the street, so we had to walk on the sidewalks. Well, we chose to. They were like super over prepared, or that's an understatement. I mean, they had the helicopter. They had. There must have been at least half as many cops as there were protesters.
Okay.
So I think it was probably about 100 cops to 200 protesters.
Okay.
They broke the law quite a bit. Like, we had a legal protest we knew the law probably better than they did, in terms of like, there are restrictions on neighborhood picketing. Like you can't go and stand in front of your target's house and protest that way. You have to move around. You know, you have to have a moving picket, that covers a certain distance. Well, they wouldn't even let us obey the law because they blocked us in, and they redirected the protest at multiple junctures. They were aggressive. They drove on the sidewalks with their motorcycles, and they sort of lunged at protesters with them.
Right. I've been in situations like that. Yeah.
They conducted drills. It was really weird. Caitlin. Like, like some of them looked, like ghosts. Like they were scared.
Yeah.
And you see this from time to time. It's like some of them, they have to cut their teeth on some type of protest situation so that they know how to do it next time. So they were running drills in the street, even though there was none of us were in the street.
Right.
But I want to mention one thing in particular. When the front of the march, so we decided to give up the street and not force the issue because we wanted to make sure that we made it to Choate's house, which was a little, like maybe half a mile from the meetup location. So we wanted to get there first before we tried to get too bold. And so we ended up doing a sidewalk march. So that turns like a, kind of a larger crowd into a skinny little river of people. And so when that river when it arrived at Choate's house, first of all, nobody but a couple of us even knew his address. We were cautious about releasing that for liability reasons. And so I was at the front of the march looking up on my phone. Wait, where is it? We must be almost there. Right. And then we kind of turned the corner, and there were cops, like 7 riot cops in his driveway. Like if nobody knew where he lived, they told us.
They knew where he lived.
Yeah. They told us where he lived. So there were 7 riot cops in his driveway, and it was and tons of cops everywhere else. And I didn't notice this at the time, but I was looking back on my pictures, and there's a second floor, probably the master bedroom, a second floor window in Choate's house that was had the window open and the screen removed, and total darkness in the room. And I'm guessing they had
sniper.
Right, exactly. They had
They're trained
dudes with the long guns. What's that?
Sorry, I'm sorry.
They had dudes with the long guns up there.
Oh, right.
I mean, they came prepared for war. And so anyway, that's a little bit about the cops. One last thing about the cops. They marked people for arrest, and as they do, this is also typical that cops, they definitely want to like give a black eye to a protest if they can, and or give us a little spank on the butt for doing things, and also it's a great way to control the narrative. So if they can arrest people at a legal protest, they can say, well, look what these anarchists did. Look what these troublemakers
arrested.
did. Yeah. They arrested 3 people for, I don't know, like being at a protest, basically. Like, it was nothing. It was disobeying a lawful order or something like that. But nobody broke the law. People may have lingered in the street a little longer than they should have, but like on a street where the only cars are cop cars, and it's a farce. But But so they marked some people for arrest that, they had they had their cop videographers filming us, and they probably identified some people that they were like, okay, maybe we can charge this person. Maybe we can get away with a conviction on this person for obstructing traffic or, whatever it was. And so we're going to arrest them. And so what they did was they set up checkpoints on the exit routes from out of the neighborhood.
Oh, shit.
And we saw at least 2 checkpoints. I personally saw at least 2 checkpoints where there were cops standing in the road directing traffic. And it looks like, oh, they're doing a great service. They're actually looking for the people that they marked in the cars leaving. And then they forced those people to pull over, and they yanked them out of their car quite violently and arrested them.
Wow.
But it's a very cynical move. It's to control the narrative. All the headlines read, 3 arrested for disorderly conduct or whatever it was at this protest. And so, for the most part, that's what people think of the protest. Yeah. An unruly mob, which, we wish it was an unruly mob. We don't have the forces to bring an unruly mob out.
Yeah, right. So do you think the cops targeted who they thought were the organizers, or were they just basically looking for anyone they thought they could arrest?
No, I don't think they were
not that bright,
that deep into it. Or yeah. No, it wasn't organizers. It was just people that did something on film that they thought that they could get away with a conviction. I think one person allegedly had a laser pointer that was, obstructing the cop videographer, and someone had a drum. Oh yeah, noise was another thing. Yeah. So, I mean, ultimately, it's really bothersome to me, these type of arrests, because it discourages people from coming out. Exactly. And it takes people out of the game. If you get an arrest, even for something minor, you don't want to.
You want to do it again.
You don't want to do it again, at least until that charge is cleared up. Yeah. But fortunately, the people that got arrested are they're already committed activists, and there was a couple people from Extinction Rebellion.
Okay.
So I don't think that's a big deal. But it's annoying. But I don't see the way to avoid it. I mean, the cops do what they want, and they definitely don't like these type of confrontational actions, and are going to try to give us a spanking.
Right. Was raising bail money a problem for any of the comrades or any of the organizations?
We did raise some money. It's a little bit complicated.
Sure.
Because of, we don't want to take away from raising money for immigrants fighting to stay in this country, or fighting their extradition, or not extradition, deportation. And so that was a little complicated. The comrades that got arrested were fine with funding their own defense.
Sure.
So I think that's I haven't checked in on this in a couple weeks, but I think that's how things are proceeding.
Sure.
One person that was arrested wasn't ever even brought to jail. They were just ticketed and released.
Yeah.
2 other people were released. I think one, maybe both, on their own recognizance. So the bonding amount wasn't a big deal, but the legal defense thing is, I want to be there. I think we have a responsibility to follow up with our comrades as best we can, but yeah, we do have limited funds. So.
There's only so much you can do, right? Of course.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting story. Thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
What do you see for the way forward, or what other actions planned after that, or what do you see happening next?
Well, we always kind of saw this action as existing in an ecosystem of other activist work on this issue. And, you know, I'm talking about the Denver Communists now. You know, we also want to, you know, our goals were to heighten struggle around this issue, to bring more people into this movement, immigrant rights movement, as well as to bring more people into the revolutionary socialist movement.
Right. I like what you said about building a united front.
Say again?
I like what you said about a united front, building a united front.
Yeah. It's definitely, you know, we're applying the united front as best we can.
Right.
So, but I don't know that, like, most of our activist friends and comrades that were working on this action had the same view. Okay. You know, like I end up taking like a very kind of internal view. Like, look, this isn't about trying to move the needle of public opinion. Yeah. This isn't about trying to get city council to, you know, take some little action against the concentration camp. Like, those things can come later, but we really need to focus on
building a movement,
building militancy, building organization, building consciousness amongst the people that are co-thinkers, you know?
Right. Morton, that's, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Oh, cool. So I don't know how well that has worked out. I can say that it hasn't put people into Denver Communist meetings. Okay, you know, yeah. we didn't see, like, I saw you guys did this rad protest, and now I want to, like, check out what communism is all about or whatever. That hasn't happened. You know, maybe a few people, but not a lot of. Despite the level of media attention, which is good for us, you know, it wasn't quite national, but it was pretty good on a local level.
Right. Got a lot of exposure on Facebook anyway. Left book and social media got a huge amount of exposure. Which.
Yeah, we were grateful for that. But so, you know, like, we're also not well set up to, and we're not clicking on all cylinders. You know, in terms of, like, okay, you know, let's make sure we have sign-up sheets. Let's make sure we're relating to the people at the action, right, and trying to, you know, connect them with both Abolish ICE, right, and the Denver Communists, and get them roped into that work. And from what I've seen, like, Abolish ICE isn't even focused on that, like, onboarding new members. You know,
right?
But they're larger.
Yeah. Right. Sorry. More. Abolish ICE would be more focused on lobbying the city council, or
yeah, they are. Yeah, definitely. They're a little. They have a less sort of narrow political focus. You know, like they're split with, like, cooperating with these NGOs and meeting with the governor, and, you know, like, they try to take all the routes, all the left liberal approaches, you know.
Sure. That's the path of least resistance for.
Yeah, or it just comes from an like, holding eclectic politics. That's how I view it. You know, they don't have a focused political program.
Right.
But and as far as what's next, I'm hoping that we can continue the campaign. Actually, I should say we are continuing the campaign. Or some comrades in Colorado Springs have taken up the baton.
Okay.
And are the first week of January, so I guess in like 2 or 3 weeks, there's a protest, a Confront La Migra Where They Live protest, at the home of a someone who held, like, the the CEO of a company that contracts for ICE.
Right.
They do like maintenance. They have like a maintenance contract first for a concentration camp in Colorado Springs. So.
Right. That's interesting. I picture Colorado Springs as like a really right-wing town. I had family
Oh,
members
yeah.
who lived there. It's an Air Force base there or something. It's an Air Force town.
Yeah, it is. It is real. Like the far right is very strong there.
Yeah.
The Air Force base, and also Focus on the Family, this right-wing Christian organization.
Right. Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, but there are some leftists there fighting the fight.
Okay. Great. Yeah. No, just one more question. Um, what slogans did you use? Abolish ICE. I have some comrades in the Boston area who use the term smash ICE. Now, I don't
Mm.
know which is better, like smash. Well, maybe a little ultra left, like smash ICE through workers' revolution. I mixed feelings about that, but what would be your take on that?
On that particular one, I mean, I like it.
Yeah,
Um,
it's not this.
we've been saying lately that not officially, but like demolish ICE,
Yeah.
just because it rhymes with abolish, but it's a little
Okay.
bit,
Yeah. Sure. Works.
more violent or something.
Yeah. Right. Demolish
um,
ICE. Yeah. That would work. Yeah.
Especially because I mean, and I know from being Facebook friends that you're with me on this. Abolish ICE has turned, the people in office,
Mhm.
Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie, have turned that slogan into have defanged that slogan.
Yeah. Yeah.
They turned it into, well, yeah, we're going to abolish ICE, but we're going to just move the functions around to different agencies.
Make it what it used to be, like the INS or whatever. Make it what it used to be.
Yeah. Let's go back to the good old days of
Yeah.
Obama.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Fuck out of here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so what slogans? I don't know.
Yeah.
We a lot of the typical ones. Yeah, definitely abolish ICE. I mean, no borders, no nations, no racist deportations.
That's a good
That was
one.
our banner for the
Yeah.
event.
Okay, that's a good one.
Um, I think that when we go to no borders, no nations, that's the maximum
Yeah.
program there.
Right. Okay. Cool.
But and obviously, like as Trots, we want to connect the current demands to that. So.
hmm Right. Cool. Makes sense. Let's see. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share?
I don't know, Caitlin. What else? Oh well, in terms of what's next, we learned that. Well, it's tough to tell how much they're saying this because out of a PR move, like to try to gain sympathy, but the acting director, the acting field office director of ICE in Colorado, is this real right wing monster named John Fabricatore. He's like an MMA fighter,
Mm,
and see him on Facebook with like a Punisher
yeah.
T-shirt.
Yeah.
He's a low key fascist. Um, uh, he made some public appearances around before and after this protest and said and cried apparently. I don't know if I assume they were crocodile tears,
Yeah.
to gain sympathy, saying, oh, my agents are terrified that they're going to come to their house next. And so, that's music to my ears, to our ears. And so our plan was to flyer multiple targets across the city. So, and in other cities like Aurora, Denver, Golden, I think was one, different cities in the Denver area, just to flyer them, like, and put their picture and their title and their little rap sheet, like what they've done and why that they deserve to be targeted by immigrant rights protesters, and flyer cars and neighbors and post them on, and just make our presence known. And so we want to do that to like 4 or 5, 6 targets and just kind of see what happens. Hopefully we'll get some media attention. Hopefully we'll get them to freak out. and then follow it up with another house demo. I
Right.
think the campaign has some life in it left, that we can keep doing it. And would definitely like to support other comrades around the country doing it as well. So,
Okay, cool.
and propagate the tactic. Like, let's not let this become normalized. These little Eichmanns need to be put on notice for what they are. So,
Exactly. Yeah, well, I wish you lots of luck with it. You're doing amazing and very important work.
thank you so much. It really means a lot to me, Conrad.
Cool. Well, solidarity, and thank you for the interview. I have to go.
Okay,
Okay.
awesome, Caitlin. Great to
Thank
talk
you.
to you. I'll see you
You
online.
too. Okay, see you online. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.